Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 24th, 2022 Select Board meeting. We are meeting virtually tonight and being live streamed and broadcast by WACA-TV. I'm going to call this open meeting to order at 7:07 p.m. We are coming in from executive session. And so we'll go ahead and begin with citizens' participation. I would ask that anyone who wishes to participate tonight to use the raise hand function on Zoom. Please. I see Mark Dissoni has his hand up. Mark, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I got two things I'd like to bring up. First one is to Mr. Mignani. I drove by the public safety building recently, last couple of days. Open up that present really soon. You need to show it off.
Don't worry, Mark. There'll be a time. We'll have an open house and we'll have a dedication once everything is completed.
Yeah, because the front looks like it's ready to have a go at it, and everything else. I was at your meeting yesterday. There is still a few nuts and bolts and crosses the T's and all that stuff to go through, but it's worth the wait and worth the having.
Well, it took us 30 years to get there, Mark. So a few more weeks isn't going to hurt us.
Well, we both know that. And I'd like to say to the town manager that I would like to have a moment of appreciation for how this town in the recent past, has stood up for the Ukraine. The Ashland area group, isn't that right, Michael, Mr. Herbert?
We've got a number of groups here, yes.
How many are there that's helping to represent Ukraine?
I think there's a number. I know Ashland is United recently had an event supporting Ukraine, celebrating their flag raising. I think we have a number of groups and nonprofit organizations that actually are supportive of the efforts in Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine today is celebrating their Independence Day today under reckless conditions from the other side. And I saw the UN Emergency Council go at it, and if they could be united, it'd be worth the time to help Ukraine out and keep them get back with what they have to keep again. And all else, this house is good. And to Ms. Sue Roby, I have given to the town clerk and Mr. Town Manager, I have brought in my voted ballot. I brought it to the town clerk's office.
Awesome.
But I don't want to have anything like Atlanta or Arizona or anything like that. I sealed it, I scotch taped it, and I put it in a little powder just in case anybody's trying to break into it. All else, I'm all set. Have a good meeting.
Well done, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. We appreciate that, and I'm glad you voted. Is anyone else here for citizens' participation? If so, you can go ahead and use the raise hand function. I am not seeing anyone. So we do have a scheduled hearing at 7:15. We have a couple minutes before then. So let's go ahead and just go ahead and move to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Greaves, aye.
Mignani, aye. Mignani,
Aye.
Hinsman, aye. That passes 5-0.
Brandy, actually, if I could, I wanted to add something to the agenda. It's not very critical, but I was going to ask the town manager during his report to update us on the reservoir levels and extend our water ban past September 1st. If people are okay with adding that to his report and to the agenda.
That works for me. So we'll add that to the town town manager report later in the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yolanda. We're still heavily in drought mode here.
Mhm.
So we are at 7:11. I'm trying to think what we can possibly look at very
I
quickly.
think if you slowly read the announcement, we'd be good. My opinion.
I will read the legal notice extraordinarily slowly then. That works for me. Okay, so we're at 7:12. We're getting closer. Okay, legal notice, Town of Ashland. Notice is hereby given that the Select Board will conduct a hearing based on the petitions submitted by NStar Electric Company, DBA as Eversource Energy and Verizon. The requests include installing 3 poles, number 26/18A, number 26/16A, and number 26/16A with guy wire and anchor located on Main Street. Installing 1 pole, number 40/2A, and guy wire and anchors at pole number 40/2 located on Summer Street. Installing 3 poles, number 29/2, number 29/2A, and number 29/2B located on Myrtle Street. Installing 1 pole, number 22/3A with guy wire and anchor on Homer Avenue. Installing 1 pole, number 23/1A on Cherry Street. Cherry Street, the work order number is 2299302. On Homer Avenue, the work order number is 229302. On Main Street, the work order number is 2299302. On Myrtle Street, the number is 2299302. And on Summer Street, the work order number is 2299302. A public hearing will be held on the matter on Wednesday, August 24th, 2022 at 7:15 p.m. Parties wishing to be heard on this matter are invited to attend the public hearing. Participants are invited to attend the meeting in person at Town Hall or by logging into the Zoom meeting. We are only on Zoom tonight. Interested parties who are unable to attend the hearing may submit written comments to the Select Board's office, Town Hall, 101 Main Street, Ashland, Mass. 01721, or by emailing Susan Roby at sroby@ashlandmass.com. Brandy Kinsman Chair, Select Board. Could I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you very much. So the purpose of the hearing is the polls and the work orders that we had that I had just read, and so I thinking that we have a representative, either Rick Schiffoni or Shauna Kyle from Eversource here today. I think I see. Hi. Shauna, is that you? Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to go ahead and give a summary of what you're looking to the board to approve tonight?
Pretty much what you just read, all the streets, Main Street, Myrtle Street, Summer Street, Cherry Street, and Homer Avenue. We're putting poles there, and we're basically trying to go underground for that section of Ashland.
And this is in support of our downtown revitalization project.
Correct.
Thank you. Let's see, is there anyone here, anyone else in favor of the project?
Yeah, it's Rick Schiffoni. I'm here with Sean, or the representative of Eversource's engineering department.
Great, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
The poles are going to be joint owned, and Verizon has already signed off on them as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we had received maps showing the location of where all these are going. Does anyone, is anyone here speaking against the project? No? Okay. So I'm going to open it up to the board for any questions. Steve, go ahead.
Just a kind of a general question. How is I guess the distances between poles determined? You know, I was driving around downtown this morning and trying to, get a sense of where your new poles are going and relative to the downtown, to the underground installation. But, there are poles everywhere and the distances vary and dramatically. So how is that determined in general? I mean, what's the process?
Well, in general, poles are between 120 and 160 feet apart. That really just depends on the strains on the wires, on how much they can handle. When you come to a downtown project, the purpose of the poles at the end of each end of the downtown project is more just to give utilities an area to rise back up into the overhead. And that's why you'll see a little bit of a compression down to 20 to 30 feet between the poles, just to allow each utility to come up, because you can only have so many utilities rising on any one pole.
Okay.
Otherwise, the rises will box you in.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Just as a point of clarification, I know we had a motion and a second to open the public hearing. I don't think we took a roll call vote. So let's go ahead and vote to open the hearing.
Reeves, aye.
Vignani, aye.
Okay, Kinsman, aye. Sorry about that. This back to virtual thing is it's a little throwing me off a little bit. So thank you. I'm sorry. So Steve, did you feel like you had your question answered?
Yeah, I did. It's just a general question. I mean, I understand what Rick was saying relative to where the power lines are going to enter into the underground. So I get that. So I'm fine.
Yolanda, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so just, I guess, so these poles are, as you said, just so that when we get to where the undergrounding ends, these poles are then going to allow the utilities to go back up and continue, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And what's the timing? What's the timing of this?
Well, once the underground, it's done in parallel. Once the underground is all done and connected through Main Street, and we can energize that, then we'll disconnect all the overhead wires on Main Street, and then you'll essentially be underground, us, and then all the other utilities will go underground. But you end up with a parallel system at one point before you do a cut over from overhead to underground. That'll minimize the amount of outages that you have.
And so the timing then of that is, when do you think you'll be getting to completing the undergrounding and the parallel?
I think Eversource has got their wires and cable all pulled in. I'm not quite sure. I don't believe we're gone under the railroad tracks yet. I think that section still has to be done. So once that's done, we'll have a continuous loop through the downtown area, and then we can start the conversions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks. Does anyone else have any questions? Joe, you're muted.
I do. I have a few questions. I appreciate the explanation. We're taking down poles, and I know people are going to ask this to me. Why are we putting up new poles when we're getting rid of the old poles and everything is going underground? At some point, will these poles be removed as well, or will they be permanently stationed at those sites? And is that just because of the where the lines will be going in underground for that purpose, just to support those lines? Is that what I understand?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. The poles that we're putting in under this petition will be staying in for just a transition from underground to overhead.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make that clarification. Thanks, I appreciate that. I'm all set, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Rob, go ahead.
Quick, Michael and your team, you guys have reviewed that and you're confident this is a good plan for the
Yeah, I mean, Eversource spends a good amount of time ahead of time before construction, designing and engineering the system. So yeah, I'm confident with their locations and what they're looking at doing.
Okay, Yolanda, you have another question? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I don't see anything for Front Street. So are the utilities for Front Street not going underground? Or are we just not there yet?
No, they're going underground.
There's no pole request at the end of Front Street anywhere. I'm seeing all the other edges of the downtown undergrounding, but there's nothing for Front Street yet.
The existing poles on Front Street are okay for us to ride on. We didn't have to add any additional ones.
Perfect. Great. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any further questions? No? Good. Okay. So could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Let's do a roll call vote.
Reeves, aye.
Mitchell, aye.
Vignani, aye.
I saw Rob's hand. I count that.
Share aye.
Kinsman, aye. So the public hearing is closed. Is there any other deliberations on the board, or are we okay to go ahead and take a vote? Good.
Take a vote.
Okay.
Good.
Could I get a motion?
Motion to accept the polls as presented in the public hearing notice.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Reeves, aye.
Mitchell, aye.
Vignani, aye.
Share aye.
Kinsman, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you both for being here with us this evening. And we should be all good to go. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your help.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Okay, great. So moving on to old new business. First item on the agenda is to open the special town meeting warrant and review the guidance. Jen, Michael, I don't know if who wants to walk through the timeline and the information.
I can go ahead and do it. So this fall, we're planning on town meeting being November 16th, 2022. This is after consulting with both the moderator and town council to ensure that they could both be present. As usual, Jen has prepared a timeline and a schedule that points out milestone dates as part of the town meeting process. We're asking the board to open the warrant tonight. September 30th would be the deadline for the notice of intent to submit proposed warrant articles. There would be a due diligence period between September 30th and October 19th for warrant articles. We're looking at the board taking a vote to close and post the warrant on October 19th. Just as a precaution, we've also put a no later date in terms of when the warrant has to be posted, which is November 2nd. It needs to be two weeks before a special town meeting. And again, town meeting would be on November 16th, 2022.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. Does anybody have any questions?
Good.
Good to go.
Pretty straightforward.
I just have a question. So Michael, and Jen, this is pretty much the regular schedule in terms, I just don't remember from last time, but this is kind of the usual, much the usual timelines we usually do.
Yes.
And do we have the high school already booked for that day? Yeah.
The high school is booked, yes.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. So could I get a motion to open?
Motion to open the special town meeting warrant as presented.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. And a roll call vote.
Reeves, aye.
Mitchell, aye.
Vignani, aye.
Kinsman, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you, Jen and Michael, for putting that together. And you'll be sending this out to committees and folks so that they can submit their notice of intent, correct?
Correct.
Great. Thank you. moving on in our agenda, review and approve the Election Day Reform Law titled the Votes Act. The Select Board is required to vote to allow for several of the temporary changes to become permanent. Items include vote by mail and early in-person voting, in addition to the assignment of police officers / constable at polling places. Michael, do you want to
Yep,
go through it? Yeah.
This change was made recently as part of the session laws of 2022. Cindy Livingstone, our town clerk, has requested to vote to assign at least one police officer for all the future elections in 2022. And she's also asking that the board delegate their authority to assign the specific police officers to work at the polling places to the town clerk in coordination with the police chief. This changes from the old law. What changes from the old law is previously the police chief was the authority that would determine assigned police officers. Under the new law, it needs to be the select board in our form of government.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Yolanda?
So does this mean when we have early voting going on at town hall, there has to be a police officer there the whole time?
It does not. And
Okay.
actually, for early voting, that is still up to the discretion of the police chief.
So this is just for election day that we have become the purveyor or the approver of this.
Correct.
And we are being asked to give the approval to the town clerk to manage this.
Correct.
So that we don't have to be voting this and approving it every time. Okay. That makes sense. And are we getting money from the state because they're mandating we have a police officer there?
I don't believe so. I know they have been providing some funds for early voting and mail-in voting, but I'm not necessarily sure for actual voting day or election day.
Okay. Something we should ask our legislators.
Good point.
That was all I had for questions.
Joe, do you have a question?
I do, and thank you, Yolanda, for asking that one, because that was part of my question. The second part is when we asked the chief of police to provide a police officer for the town elections. Is that correct? We can't ask specifically for one specific police officer. We just need a body that is a police officer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because it didn't sound right at first when it was first read. So, okay, thank you. So all we're doing is we're requesting an officer, but it's not a specific officer because that has to go out to bid with respect to their CBA.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. So could I get a motion?
Motion to accept Chapter 92, Section 72 of Act 2022 to allow the town clerk to work directly with our police chief for a police officer on election day for do we just want it for 2022 or all future town elections?
Let's do 2022 for right now.
For 2022.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Take a roll call vote, please.
Reeves, aye.
Mitchell, aye.
Vignani, aye.
Right.
Kinsman, aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is to vote to sign and post the warrant for the 2022 state primary. Michael?
This is pretty self-explanatory. This is a routine action that the board takes, that the board has to take, which is to go ahead and vote and sign this warrant. And you have a list of the polling places on your second page. Or where it's going to be posted. I apologize. Not polling places, but where it's going to be posted.
All right. Does anyone have any questions?
So Ashland Fish and Game for Precinct 2? Was that like the best spot or?
It was the best spot. You have to find a spot that's visible and relatively
I see. Okay.
within the precinct.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Nope.
Joe?
You're muted, Joe.
Unmute yourself.
It's been a while.
Really, honest to goodness. It's like starting school all over again. Slap my hand. Is that handicap accessible? Because I know they have stairs, but I don't know of a ramp that would go to the voting locations unless they're going to go to the old bar area and put the ballot boxes there.
This is not voting, Joe.
Yeah, this is
just the
where the constable will post.
Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind.
Yeah, I misspoke the first time. I think I called it polling.
You did. That's why I'm going, wow. We're going through
Be an incentive for voting, Joe. Have a beer and vote.
Several times, too. I'm not talking about the beers, I'm talking about the votes.
On that note,
yes, let's move on, Madam Chair, before I get myself in trouble.
No, we're good. Does anybody else have any questions? Are we good? Could I go ahead and get a motion?
Motion to accept the warrant and approval to post it for the 2022 state primary.
Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And a roll call vote?
Reeves, aye.
Mitchell, aye.
Aye.
Kinsman, aye. That passes 5-0. Okay, moving on. Our next agenda item is discuss the Metro West Regional Collaborative seat on the Boston Metropolitan Planning Organization. Michael, did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, just briefly, the Boston Metropolitan, the Boston MPO is the entity that determines where TIP funds go. And as we've said before, that can be a substantial amount of money. So it's important to have good representation for our region on the MPO. Framingham has asked to be reelected to the Metro West seat on the MPO. We've been informed that the mayor, if Framingham was successful in winning this election, Framingham would designate Dennis Giambetti as the person to serve on the MPO. Many of you know Dennis. Dennis currently serves on the MPO as Framingham currently holds the seat. And Dennis has served on it for a while. There was a brief period when Mayor Spicer was in office where Thatcher Keyser was the representative from Framingham. But in order to move forward his nomination, we need three communities to nominate Framingham to be the representative, and asking the board if that's what they would like to do tonight, which is support Framingham's nomination. If so, what we would need to do is we need to get Brandy's signature and notify the MPO.
I think Framingham has done a good job, and certainly with Dennis as our representative, he does look out for all the communities. So if they are going to keep Dennis, I think it makes sense to support Framingham's nomination as our representative for the region.
I would agree with that as well. I think, Dennis has helped us out in a variety of formats, so definitely supportive.
I agree with that 100%. Absolutely.
I think there's good synergy if he's on the MPO with the MBTA as well, because they're really a key part of the tees up meetings and issues. So that sounds like a great idea.
And one thing before I forget, Susan, we all have to sign the election warrant. Okay, we didn't make note of that. So when's that? When do we hit this week? Next week? What time frame?
I have it in the office, so whenever you guys can stop by, we just need the majority of the board.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve. Susan texted me, making sure that I remind folks that they need to sign the election warrant. So thank you. So I think that it sounds like we're all in support of Framingham for the MPO. Michael, do we need to take a vote on this, or
Maybe.
is everyone okay with just me signing on behalf of the board?
Technically, I don't think you do need a vote, but in this case, I think it would probably be a good belt and suspenders approach.
Yeah.
I move that we support Framingham's bid to represent our region on the MPO with Dennis Giambetti as their person attending.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Vignani, aye.
Hinsman, aye. That carries 5-0. And I'll let Dennis know that Framingham has our support, and we'll move forward with that.
Perfect.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on in our agenda, review the request from the Ashland Lions to consider recognizing Robert Confrati, Barbara Thornton by naming rooms at the Public Safety Building after them.
Brandy, may I address this, please?
Absolutely, go ahead.
So as the board recalled several meetings ago, we approved a naming policy for the Public Safety Building. And that policy requires the board to appoint a subcommittee. And the subcommittee consists of the police chief, the fire chief, and their designees, plus at least one Ashland resident. And so the policy says at least one. We can have more than one, certainly. But I think in terms of addressing this particular request, I think it certainly is reasonable, it's valid, but again, the process is to appoint this committee and let them do their work. I know we've discussed this at the our public safety building meetings, and the chiefs are supportive of creating this subcommittee and starting this process. So I would ask the board at this point that we create that subcommittee and open it up to the public to participate in this process. And again, there's no set number for residents, but we should advertise that. So that's really where we're at this juncture.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So is the subcommittee going are the two police chiefs, the police chief and the fire chief, are they going to be reaching out? Are they going to be conducting the search for residents to be a part of this subcommittee, or is that the Public Safety Building Committee?
No, that's a select board.
The select board. Okay.
Select board it's our appointment, and we should be soliciting residents. I guess assuming we're going to move forward with the process that we've created, we should advertise for residents to serve on this. Let's put a date on it, and then we can appoint that committee when we have sufficient numbers to do so. So tonight we're just creating the subcommittee. I would say tonight we're creating it, advertising it, and a future date to actually appoint. Make sense? It does.
Does anyone have questions?
Steve, so do you have a written proposal, or with a date and a procedure that you want to that we can take a vote on?
Apparently, you haven't read the policy, Rob. It kind of lays it out in the.
Oh well, I mean tonight you were just talking about a date and all. I mean, do we need to take?
No, I said a future date. I didn't say a date. If you want to, if we want to advertise it for 30 days, and then we can put it on an agenda at that point.
I'm guilty of not having read the policy recently, so I do best for that.
I do appreciate you supporting it, Rob. So you voted to support it. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think a 30-day advertisement would be good.
Okay.
In regards to people interested.
Yep.
And then is the idea that they would form the subcommittee and it would always be the same group of people doing these, Steve?
Not necessarily. I think it would depend on the, moving forward,
okay.
What requests we may have. One of the other things that we're discussing as well is, on the site, the outdoor area, there are 3 benches and there are 9 appropriate trees that can be utilized as dedication sources, memorials.
Right.
So we haven't developed anything yet, but we're heading in that direction. But the only two constants on a name on the subcommittee are the two chiefs.
Here's a recommendation. Could we set a committee for 6 months so that we're not having to advertise every time
Sure.
we get these, right? Do an advertisement for 30 days and say your current commitment will be for 6 months once we appoint the first group, and then we'll reevaluate every 6. I mean, I'm sure once we do all the naming, it'll get done at some point.
Yeah.
And I would think we could use similar procedure for the benches and the tree memorial.
Well, the benches and trees are a little different. The committee will report back to the select board on that separately. But this is just for the namings of rooms and or actual building components.
Parts. Okay.
Right. So, but I like your idea. 6 months is fine. 30 days for advertisement, and if we could put it on the website, Michael, we're looking for some volunteers for that.
Sounds good.
So that our second meeting in September, we could hopefully be appointing this.
Yeah.
Especially if the building's going to be opening sometime in September, it would be good to have that in place.
Yeah. And we can advertise it on the town, Michael's town manager
email
page, town page. We'll put it on the public safety Facebook page as well.
Yep.
I'm just looking at the calendar. Our second meeting in September is the 21st. So I don't know, maybe we want to give us a little bit of a buffer and maybe do it the first meeting
in October. Okay.
Does it sound good?
Yep. Okay.
That actually falls into play very, very nicely. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next agenda item is review and vote on reappointment for terms expiring on August 31st, 2022. We have on our agenda the list of committees that we reappoint and reappoint for. I know Susan had reached out to all the current members of our committees, asking them if they wanted to be reappointed. And create a great simple Google Doc that collected their responses. And so I think we all have in our packets the list of committees and the folks that are looking to be reappointed. So we'll go committee by committee and do the reappointments.
Is this the clerk's job to read these? No, I just want to make
I can do it. I don't think this is that
I'm
heavy.
good with
My
that.
brain's a little foggy, but it's not that foggy. We're good.
I just wanted to make sure. I had to read that 20-page document the last meeting, so.
Madam Chair, I think the clerk should do something once in a while.
Wow. Wow.
Payback.
Yes, because our last clerk did so much,
That's right. That was a great example.
I was always absent from big readings when I was clerk, so we're good. We're good.
Right. Jerry, I think you better move on before it gets heavier.
We're having way too much fun tonight.
This Zoom thing is making us all a little punchy. So our first committee is the Affordable Housing Trust. Steve Greenberg, Joe Mignani, and Barbara Segundo have all indicated that they would like to be reappointed. Is there any discussion, or are we okay going ahead to reappoint these three?
Motion to reappoint the three as mentioned, with a term expiring August 31st, 2025.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, aye.
I think I have to abstain.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing.
Right.
Okay. Simpson, aye. That passes 4-0-1 with Joe Mignani abstaining. Congratulations, Joe, on being reappointed.
Thank you.
And thank you to Steve and Barbara for wanting to be reappointed as well. The Board of Registrar, John Featherston, was up for reappointment, and he had decided not to be reappointed. So we just want to say thank you to John for his service on the Board of Registrar. Cable Advisory Board, we have not received a response from John Thomas, so we won't reappoint him at this time. Moving on to Community Preservation Committee, Gretchen Bravacos and Donna Saul. Both had said that they would like to be reappointed.
Motion to approve Gretchen and Donna with an expiration of August 31st, 2025.
Second,
And roll call vote.
Reeves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Vignani, aye.
And Kinsman, aye. Thank you.
I actually have a recommendation, if you don't mind. Rather than taking a vote for each one, Brandy, if you just want to read through them.
Okay.
And then once you've done that, we take a motion on everybody, unless there's something controversial. But I think, you know, that if that's okay with everybody, rather than having to vote each one separately in motion and vote.
That works for me. That unless somebody else has any.
I think that works.
Okay. All right. Council on Aging. Alexis Christopher. Conservation. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Conservation Commission. Carl Hackinson and Catherine Van Lanker. Council on Aging. Alexis Christopher, Pat McHale, and Lisa Ugliaro. For the Historical Commission, Karen Coleman. For Stormwater Committee, Preeti Srija. For Sustainability Committee, Margie Gassel and Matthew Marshquist.
Madam Chair, you may have missed open space and rec.
So for Open Space and Rec, William Child had decided not to reapply for another term.
I apologize for interrupting. So
we're good. We're good. I appreciate the check tonight. It's a lot of names, so I appreciate that. Town Forest Committee, Rob St. Germain, Kara Hume, and Michael Morrissey. For Tri-Mount Aggregation Oversight Committee, Jean Crouch, Don Jones, John McPartland, and Rajit Gupta. For Zoning Board of Appeals, Anton Tikhomarov, John Trefethen, and Associate Member Stuart Siegel.
You missed sustainability. You missed sustainability.
Motion to accept as presented with an expiration, with a termination date of August 31st, 2025.
And you missed sustainability.
So Mark, can you please mute yourself?
Okay.
Thank you. So we have a motion. Could I get a second?
We got a second here.
Thank you, Steve.
Reeves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Vignani, aye.
Kinsman, aye. That's passes 5-0. And just to the point that Joe made, I just want to thank William Child for 17 years on Open Space and Rec. He's been a valuable member of the committee, and I know that they will miss him. Also want to thank Liz Childress on the Historical Commission, who had decided not to be reappointed, and Kathy Rooney from the Town Forest Committee. You know, we thank everybody for their service to our community. So thank you all. And thank you to Susan for putting all this together. We have one more thing on the reappointments is to discuss adding term limits to the Upper Charles Trail Committee. One of the things that is listed in our agenda, Judy Rosenthal, we hadn't officially appointed her. She was recommended for the Upper Charles Trail, and we were going to reappoint. We were going to appoint her at the time that that we were doing our August appointments. So I just want to make sure that we take care of Judy Rosenthal before we talk about the term limits on the Upper Charles Trail Committee.
Motion. Oh, sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Motion to appoint Judy to the Upper Charles Trail.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Vignani, aye.
Kinsman, aye. Passes 5-0. And so moving on to the term limits. So quite a while ago, we were discussing the Upper Charles Trail, and it was when we put the committee together, there wasn't term limits put at all. For the rest of our committees, we do these revolving term limits, so not all the terms expire at the same time, and everything is a bit staggered, but we don't have the term limits for the Upper Charles Trail. It was kind of like a lifetime sentence on the
It was death that was the end date.
A lifetime appointment.
Well completed. You can see we're about to do that.
Or completed. So I know that Rob and Joel and the committee worked to assign terms to the current committee members, and so we have in front of us sort of that staggered term, so that Judy Rosenthal, Valerie Paul, and Rob Scher's term would expire on August 31st, 2023. Doug Costello, Tony Lewis, and Marty Ring would expire on August 31st, 2024. And Joel Arbeitman, Preston Crow, and David Rosenblum's term would expire on August 31st, 2025. And that each reappointment would be for a 3-year term if the committee wishes to do reappointment. So is there any discussion, Rob? I see your hand up.
So point out, I don't know, Sue, did you ever talk to Valerie? Because I'm pretty sure she told me verbally she didn't want to get reappointed because, of her situation. So that'd be my only question on this. I'm not sure it makes sense to reappoint Valerie.
Rob, is it imminent that she's moving out of town, or is it something? I know their home in Ashland is still being renovated, so, and I know their new home is still being constructed. So,
yeah,
it's only for basically it's a year. So I would say appoint her, and then when she leaves, we'll have an opening.
And I would also say she would need to do a resignation anyway. Right. So we haven't received any formal notification from her through the committee that she's formally resigning. So we could potentially reappoint someone, but not until we receive the resignation or anything.
Yep.
Okay. But that's good to know.
I move that we approve the term limits with the different committee members as presented for the Upper Charles Trail Committee.
Second.
And roll call vote.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, aye.
Vignani, aye.
Chair.
Following Joe's lead.
Kinsman, aye. So great. Thank you all. That passes 5-0. So the Upper Charles Trail.
I abstained.
You abstained. Okay. So 4-0-1 with Rob Scher abstaining. Thank you very much. One thing I did want to just mention, going through the reappointment process, I want to put on a future agenda our committee handbook, which hasn't really been updated in a while. So I think we rely on committees to make recommendations to us for appointments and reappointments. And going through the committee handbook, that really kind of doesn't reflect that. So if board is open to it at a future meeting, I'd like to make some recommendations to some changes that we could potentially make to the committee handbook, as well as like Lisa Ugliaro had recommended putting in some social media stuff for the committees as well. So if that was something that the board would be open to, I can put that on a future agenda.
Makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
I think that's a good idea because I think we saw that we could use some procedures in place, yes, the lack of a better term, when certain situations arise.
Sounds good. Okay. And just thank you to everyone who who has asked to be reappointed to a committee. You know, we couldn't do, you know, half the work we do in Ashland without the volunteers that really power all of our committees and groups. So thank you all for your service to Ashland. So moving on our agenda, we've already approved our consent agenda. And moving on to priority project update. Michael, do you want to go ahead and start with that?
Sure. So I'll start off with downtown. I think if anybody's driven down recently, they've seen a lot of sidewalk work going along Front Street. They're making their way to Main, getting pretty close to Main. Right now, we have enough granite to do the east side of Main Street when we get to that point. Our next shipment of granite won't be here until October. So that's causing some complications, but hopefully we'll get that without issue in October, and we can continue moving forward with the sidewalk work, the curbing and the sidewalk work.
Hey, Michael, what is the timeline for paving, road pavings?
Well, we had initially looked at doing it this year, and that was with the understanding that we would have the granite, all the granite by now. We're taking a look to see if we can still squeeze it in this year. What Geosio did do is a couple of, or last week, I think, or maybe a couple weeks ago, they went through and they patched some new areas. So it's still bumpy. It's not as bumpy, but that's not a long-term fix, obviously. So short answer is I'm hoping we can still get it done this year, but it very well might get pushed into the following year.
Yeah. I would just think, you know, Front Street is pretty rough right now, and I would think, you know, to go through a winter is going to be, I would say, be tough. But, you know, I understand they probably don't want to piecemeal it at this point, but, you know, it's not just Front Street. Main Street is rough. You know, it's the whole area. So
yeah, the whole
section, yeah.
Project Locus is pretty much pretty bumpy in itself. One of the things that the Eversource rep mentioned when he was on here earlier was that we're still waiting on an MBTA review of going underneath the tracks. I did have a conversation with Brian Clarizia today. He is waiting on one more department to get comments back to him, and then they will issue the license. So hopefully that will move forward soon. We're currently working on the building connections, the actual electrical and utility connections to the buildings. So we should be sending out correspondence shortly to property owners within the area, letting them know that we'd be upgrading their connections. And we need to do inspections of each of the properties and making sure that everything's code compliant. So I'm asking for permission for that. And I already mentioned that we had patched up some paving. So that's where we are with downtown. Moving on to public safety building. Jen, would you like to give an update on that? And then before we move away from that topic, I got something I would want to ask the board.
Sure. So we're coming sort of to the end of our project. We are about 2.5 weeks out to the projected substantial completion of the construction, which should be September 9th. And so there will be a ton of activity. Most of all of the facade on the building is complete. They're working sort of down. Third floor has had its inspections and sort of moving down through the building. There'll be a lot of site work over the next 2.5 weeks. Over the next week and a half or so, you'll see them out on the sidewalk, reconstructing the sidewalk, and there is some road work. We are aware that the road work may continue into the very beginning of school, but we will be working to make sure that we're trying to limit any impact for the buses and school traffic, and we'll be notifying the schools as well as we get a little bit closer. And then we'll start to plan out our move out of our current buildings. It will be a systematic move where we'll be moving out of several buildings into one and sort of making sure that the operations continue through that process. So we expect that to happen probably through the month of October. It's really big.
Okay.
No, that's good. That's about sums it up.
Okay.
Yolanda, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I drove by the other night and the building was ablaze with light and there was no one inside. Is that on purpose
Yeah.
for safety or?
So that's required until they're substantially complete, and that's been happening throughout the construction process. So they're required to have all the lights on. They're responsible for electricity until they turn that building over to us, but it is one of the requirements. That,
I mean, it's pretty obvious now because it's all painted. So
yeah,
everything was just lit up, and I hadn't, or if I had noticed it before, it wasn't quite as bright as it was. Okay, so that's a requirement until they hand it over to us.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
I noticed a lot of lights at our high school too, so we should check with the schools on that.
Yeah,
It's required.
the apparatus bays have always been lit up, and the building essentially is, you know, I mean, it's wide open because there's no doors for a good chunk of time. So, but you know, it is fenced in and locked.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I do have to say I like the new traffic signal with the green arrow on right.
All right, there you go.
That eliminates the whole right on red controversy. So you know, hopefully
did you notice the clock?
I was just going to say nobody noticed the clock.
I noticed
the clock. There again.
You did?
I did.
I'm going to quiz you on that clock.
I went away for 2 weeks and, you know, there's a clock, so it looks good.
Like all other clocks in Ashland, it doesn't have the right time on it. So you'll just have to, but it was installed last week and not completed yet, but it's, you know, the base of it was installed.
Hopefully the time on that isn't quite as difficult to update as some of our other town clocks, so that if it does go off, we can update it pretty easily.
I think we just make them all digital.
There we go.
So,
Jen, should we quiz them on what their observations were?
I didn't notice the clock.
You don't want to do anything yet? Okay, we'll wait. We'll see what their powers of observation are for in a couple of weeks. Are we good with that, Steve?
I think so, yes.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. We're good.
All right.
One of the things I did want to bring up is actually related to the future of the downtown buildings. You know, we've talked about various ways of how we're going to handle the future disposition of those properties. Whether we've talked about feasibility studies, we've talked about including it as part of the comprehensive plan. And one of the things that I've noticed, and in my experience, I found, and I think you would agree, is that oftentimes when we have properties, we have a lot of great ideas for these properties, but they're not necessarily, I don't want to say, they're not necessarily feasible. They don't necessarily have the backing of people who can actually make that happen. So somebody, you know, it's great that you would want to have an arts center, and that's a great idea for certain properties, right? But you have to have an organization that's willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears and money, most importantly, to make that a reality. And so what happens so often is it seems like we engage in this dialogue with the public where we're asking for great ideas, and then what gets proposed is not necessarily feasible. And the public gets frustrated because they feel like they haven't been heard. We get frustrated because we feel like we're doing the best we can, and we have no power over what the market can provide. So I was thinking about that in relation to this property, to these properties, and what could happen. And Jen and Beth and I were sitting down and talking about the idea of, prior to doing anything and having any kind of discussions, what about issuing an RFP, or more specifically something called an RFI? Put that out to the public and see what kind of ideas are generated by people who actually have the potential to make it happen, and see exactly what the market will bear and what the market could support before we start engaging in a conversation with the community about what's a possibility there. And I think, you know, what we could do is we could go ahead and issue this RFI in the future. I don't want to say the real near future, but issue that out, hopefully we would get a number of proposals in. And then from that point, we can have a more focused discussion about what we would like to see there based on what can actually be provided. So I wanted to see if the board was supportive of that concept and that idea. And if it is something that you are supportive of, it's something that we could look into a little bit further.
Steve, go ahead.
So Michael, you and I have talked about this. I mean, I've expressed, the interest in having either a feasibility study done on the property or finding out from folks that as you described, have the ability, the capacity financially to make something viable, whether it's a restaurant or whatever it might be. So either path works for me. I think this might be even more effective because, again, you're going to be dealing directly with folks that have the financial capacity, presumably, to do a project. So certainly in favor of moving forward either path, but I think this one seems to make more sense.
Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, just so Michael, you're talking about the two downtown buildings, the fire and the police station, basically.
Right.
So yeah, RFIs aren't a bad tool. My only caution would be that it can't be everything, because sometimes you just don't get that many people, at any given time to see it and apply and go through that effort. But it is a good way of getting information. I agree. I don't think it should be the only thing we do. Although it is. I mean, I'm sure you have to do a lot of work connected with it anyway, but it's essentially fairly low cost for us. But whereas feasibility studies, I'm sure, would cost some money, but they're probably going to be necessary as well, I would think, because people are going to want to know the condition of the buildings and all the other issues that we may or may not know as much as we need at this point. But it's not a bad idea. I just would make sure we also get public input as well, because it could be narrowly focused response or just a few people, and I wouldn't want to be too limited in our thinking. But it's I think a constructive idea.
Just to clarify, with the RFI process, no awards would actually be made.
Right. No, I understand.
Time.
You said you were going to use it as information, but if you just get one or two and the people with a certain, you just maybe foreclose. I just want to be sure we don't foreclose other ideas, but that's all.
And Michael, we've talked about making sure this is part of the comprehensive plan process, and we would still be able to do that with this RFI. It just gives us a better idea of, people and investment, because we know that the fire station specifically, it's a great historic parcel, but it would require a lot of money to properly renovate it to really house anything. So would the RFI ask for investment levels and stuff as well, or would it just be more idea generation?
Well, it would be, I think, it would be a lot more specific than an educated guess. Let's put it that way. So we would give, proposals, or people who would be interested in proposing or putting together a proposal. We would give them the ability to evaluate the facility, look at that. And I think what they would have to do is they would have to put together some type of project budget and then demonstrate that they have the financial capacity to do that, moving forward. I think we can, solve a number of problems before they become problems through this process. For example, we can keep it fairly open-ended. We might want to close some avenues. For example, we might want to say that we're only interested in business or commercial only interests or proposals. We don't want to entertain residential proposals here, and see what we have. We could certainly open it out to sale or lease. I think it would be very, very interesting to see if people actually come back with proposals that are part of a lease arrangement. to see that. So, yeah, I think we get all that information, and then we could use that as a more comprehensive planning, or part of a more comprehensive planning process.
Okay. Yolanda?
I think it's certainly a way to start the process and see if there are people interested in spending some of their own money to renovate and or do something, specifically in the fire station. I mean, we can all talk a good game, but as you said, we've talked a lot about different properties and then things don't happen. And this way we can see if we have private interest in doing some kind of private public partnership for the project. So I think it's a good idea, and it's certainly a way to start. And certainly, we've talked to residents a little bit about what they want to see there. So, we can maybe also do a quick survey out to our residents as to what they think would be good there at the same time, and then also include it as part of our comprehensive planning process. But we know that the comprehensive planning process is gonna take a little bit longer. But I think a quick survey, even if it's just, here are 10 things or 5 things we've heard people want in that space, rank them. And then, but at the same time, I think the RFI is a good idea to see if there is private interest in doing something there.
Okay. So it sounds like I'll move forward with getting some more information and putting something together.
Joe, you have your hand up.
I do. I waited to be last because I'm a little disappointed, because I thought that when we gave our presentation to the town about needing and requiring a new public safety building, one of the things that we tried to sell to the town was that we could establish more additional parking for downtown by knocking down the police station. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about having somebody put money into a bad building, a building that we feel is a sick building and an unsafe building. If it's unsafe for our police officers and staff that are there, who would want to, revamp that building? And that center, if you've been inside that building, it's all cement brick interior, and it's all cut up into small offices and small rooms. So to me, that building should be completely demolished and used for parking for downtown, which is something that we promoted when we first originally started this project almost 3 years ago.
In my mind, Joe, that's what we're talking about is the fire station.
Okay.
Not the police station.
Okay. Well,
it wasn't specified. It wasn't specified, but in my mind, it's the fire station. And to your point, taking the police station down and creating parking.
That's fine.
And possibly a route down to Stone Park.
Well,
my thoughts are similar to Yolanda's, Joe. To me, somebody, let's say a private individual that's got the capacity to do the project, more than likely is going to go in and evaluate the state of the police department and find that it's can't be redeemed, and the value in that property is to renovate, maybe enlarge, to enlarge the fire station and provide parking for the I don't disagree that the police station, I've only been in there a handful of times. The handful of times I've been in there, it's a disaster without question. And that's, but that's my thought process as well. I mean, I'm not promoting I did speak about a feasibility study because I don't really know until an expert tells me something that, this building should or shouldn't be knocked down. But, I think common sense is also saying somebody coming in to evaluate that building for a potential project is probably going to come to that conclusion that it should be knocked down.
Yeah. I mean, to clarify, I was referring to both buildings when I was talking about an RFI. It would encompass both buildings. I believe they're actually one parcel. I think we're still getting some clarification on that. But if the board wants to make a decision that, you absolutely want to move forward with just having that as parking, I think we would probably want to do a little bit more investigation before making such a decision at this point. But you know, I certainly wouldn't be averse to that. I mean, to me, that seems to be the most practical solution as well. And I would think of any entity that would be looking at the fire station would probably, like Steve said, come to the same conclusion, because you're going to need to have parking to support whatever it is, whatever programming is happening at the fire station, whether that be a restaurant or something else.
So I don't know that we have to put it in the RFI that we need to, you know, we're looking to take down the police station. To your point, Michael, I think look at the parcel and let people look at it and decide. I would agree that most people who would look to do something at the fire station, if they know that the police station is something we're looking to take down, that they would support that for parking. And, you know, so even though I don't think we're stating it, or you're not, you know, when you didn't state it, I think anyone who would look at that would look at saying, oh yeah, let's take that down if we can, to offer more parking. But I don't know that we need to specify it in the RFI.
Again, the only reason why I made my comments is because when we went to the town and we had many a meeting and public meetings, that was the suggested route that we were going to take with respect to that in the town. You know, it's at that point, you know, they were willing to give us a new building with the understanding we're going to provide more space and more parking for the downtown folks. So, I mean, guys, do what you want to do. You know, it's a five-person board, so you do what you want to do. But I'm not going to go back on what I explained to the residents, you know, 3 years ago.
Think about it. So let's just say we get 3 proposals in, and 2 of them have, you know, have the police station designated as parking, and 1 does not. 1 has as another use, a reuse for that property other than parking. I think the beauty of the RFI process is you get to actually see what is feasible and what's practical. And then you can refine an RFP based on the information that you get. So for example, when you move forward with an RFP, maybe you do narrow it down and specify that, okay, the police building is to be taken down and used for parking to support programming, and then also designate part of it as public parking. You know, it doesn't preclude us from doing that.
Okay. I would say the only negative about, you know, going through this process of an RFI is if we don't get any responses at all. And
I don't think that's a negative. I think that would be good to know.
Well, it would be, you know, it's certainly it's valuable information, but I mean, in terms of not having any entity that's willing to invest in that property, but I don't believe that's going to be the case. I'm not really concerned about that. I think this is the route to go. I think we should support Michael's request to, you know, whenever it works, to start this process and get this information.
So, Michael, what is your time frame to start looking to put this RFI together? Because I know that, you know, we're not real close to actually taking action on you know, on these parcels.
Yeah, I would want to talk with Beth a little bit more. She's the one who's been doing a lot of the research into this parcel already in these buildings. So I would want to kind of see what's on her plate, because she's currently working on Cadillac Paint too, and moving that ball forward in addition to her regular economic development responsibilities. So before I give you an answer, I just want to check in with our staff.
So you would come back to the board before you would issue the RFI.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions, comments?
No, good.
Okay, moving on to the Mendez School. Just real quickly, recently they went before the Conservation Commission, had an amended order of conditions that went relatively smoothly. They're working on all aspects of the building construction right now, specifically the geothermal system. They're working on that. They've already started pouring concrete on well, they're probably done now on the 2nd floor. So still doing a little bit of site work and other structural work. So that's moving along. Valentine Property, as you know, we did get a bid in. I believe we've met since we got the bids in to do the foundation and the roof. We've awarded that contract to Mill City Construction. Mill City, they're under contract currently. They've already had their pre-construction site visit with Doug Scott. So hopefully we'll be working on that shortly, getting that moving. That's the Warren District.
Michael, before you go on from the Valentine's, I think we all got an email from Carl talking about the substantial work he'd done over the past week or two there, clearing things.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And actually, we had first hired somebody to do an initial clearing, an initial cleaning up of some of the invasives on the site. And afterwards, Carl and I think Robin Hicks and Greg Wands helped. But Carl especially did a lot of work in that same area, cleaning up further. I don't know if you've had a chance to drive by there, but it's different. It's very noticeable in a good way.
Wow, that's great.
A lot of those invasives have been cleaned out. So a lot of the more mature trees that were there that were really kind of hidden by some of the vines and all of the other brush, they're really prominent now. So good work going on there.
Well, thanks to Carl and Robin and Greg then for doing that. I'll have to go out and take a look. Sounds impressive. So
yeah, it's significant. Moving on to the Warren District, just an update on the Hall House. I don't know if you've driven by there, but they've started the work on that. So that's proceeding forward. So looking forward to hopefully checking that off the box soon, or checking that box off soon. So in terms of priority projects, if I didn't have any questions, I can move on into town manager report, if you'd like.
We're good. Go ahead, Michael. Yeah.
Okay. So first off, just to, I'm not going to talk about the climate action survey, which is actually what's on the agenda, but I've got a couple of other things I want to update the board on.
I was going to ask, what is the climate action survey?
We will talk about it. We will talk about it soon. It's very, it's got some very interesting results. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is just recap where we are with setting up a joint meeting with the planning board, the comprehensive plan. I think we'll be looking at the September 14th date to have that. Pete's confirming with the planning board to make sure that they can attend. Just another item, Rob, you had brought up, a legislative budget update. I think we all received correspondence from Senator Spilka and Representative Lewis about some of the things that they were able to secure in the operating budget for Ashland. One is $25,000 for decisions at every turn, $75,000 for our DEI efforts, and then also $75,000 for an ADA accessible outdoor area at the community center. So many thanks to them for working the legislature and getting those included. Brittany recently submitted the balance sheet, so that's taken care of to DOR. DOR, they have a number of vacations coming up, so our rep is currently out of the office, but I think this is the earliest that she's got it in. Wanted to give you an update on Legacy Farms and the settlement agreement that was the board voted on. So that has been transmitted to Legacy Farms, the developer, and their attorney. They have been working with us on securing the bonds necessary to do the work that we've been talking about. And actually, 2 notices of intent are being submitted that will require my signature to go before Concom to do some of the improvement work that we had talked about previously. So that is moving forward as planned. Believe it or not, the community center is already starting up their holiday program. So prior participants, they're going to be notified next week, I believe. Jen, is that it? And then previous donors for the program, they'll be notified and reached out to next month, so September. So looking forward to that. It's hard to believe it's that time of year again, but that's always a good program. Excited to see that continuing. Speaking of continuing, recreation just wrapped up their camp season. I think we had about 120 kids a week. So pretty successful session. Really want to give thanks out to Kelly, Judy, and the counselors there. They do just a great job every year, but this year especially, it seemed like they went above and beyond and had a lot of fun this year. So many thanks to them.
Hey, Michael, before you move away from the community center, I had asked you the other day, when I was there on Monday, I noticed that we had a new vehicle. And that was related to the food pantry. And there was a grant, I guess, that Jennifer Wolfing had put together, and we acquired this van that's refrigerated and for use for picking up foods and safely transporting them.
Yeah, so I think you said everything that needed to be said. Thanks to Jennifer and the community center team for putting that together.
Are we going to get a logo on the truck, by the way?
Town
seal.
We are, Jen. Are we going to get a logo? Okay, we're going to do a logo.
It's already on order.
So,
good.
Steve, it's going to be you just jumping into a hamburger.
The Ashland Tour de Burger. And then finally, like Yolanda mentioned, I just wanted to give an update on the reservoir level. We're currently at 294 feet. I believe that we turn on the emergency connection. Excuse me, just a second. When the reservoir gets at or below 293 feet for any period of time. I will say that Doug's estimate, if we continue down the trajectory or continue on the trajectory that we're currently on, we might have to activate that connection in a couple of weeks. So hopefully we'll get some more rain soon. Really happy that we have that emergency connection hooked up and running.
Raining now.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about that, Michael, is the fact that the Quabbin Reservoir is about 93% the capacity, which is, that's high relative to their normal levels. And none of the communities that are on the MWA water that use them exclusively have any water restrictions whatsoever. So it's a little, it's conflicting, I guess, impacts on water. I mean, municipal water supplies clearly is dependent on our aquifers and our reservoir level, but the Quabbin system has absolutely no issues whatsoever.
Yeah. It's good to be on the MWRA. Yeah, I guess.
Michael, are we doing a lot of enforcement? How's that working out? Like, what's any stories or trends or things you've noticed in terms of water conservation? Or
nothing that's gotten to my level, Rob. I know we do random enforcement checks, especially early in the morning. But
watching from observing my neighbors in certain businesses, I see a lot of instances of non-compliance. But
so in your neighborhood? Okay, well, that's good information.
Throughout town too. Yeah, you want me to drop a dime on somebody? I'll do that.
We'll say Rob Shearer sent us around.
You could look at somebody's lawn and it's still green after, so what's going on, guys?
As long as you're not topping off your pool.
Not actually. I did a workaround. So.
Okay.
So, Michael, the water restrictions.
We'll observe Yolanda's pool this weekend. So, yeah.
So our water restrictions are really only in effect until the end of August, correct?
August 31st. So the board would need to vote to extend those, and I would suggest till September 30th at this point.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think nothing's going to drastically change in the next, week or so. And I think it's prudent for us to extend it. So, the conservation efforts are there. So,
can I follow up, Randy, on your point about conservation efforts? Well, Michael, so that goes back to my question. Are we seeing results? I mean, can you tell from water use that this kind of outdoor restrictions are being useful or should be kept in place? Should we be looking at enforcement, more vigorous enforcement? Like what's...
as far as I know, we haven't done that specific analysis. That's certainly something that I can talk to Doug and the water department about and seeing if we're seeing any trends associated with putting in those conservation measures. I'm not sure if that's ever been done, or it might be being done and it just hasn't got to my desk yet.
So Randy's point about extending it. So how useful is that going to be? I guess that would be the thing we should all kind of keep in mind, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's good information for us to have.
Even if we're not necessarily doing strict enforcement, if we extend it, then people who do follow the rules will not start using water. So I see no harm in extending it to help with conservation measures.
I don't disagree. I would also add that I would hope that the towns that are utilizing our water supply, even though they are paying for it, are also following the same steps and measures that we have with the water restrictions right now. Because when I drive into Milford via Hopkinton, I see lawn sprinklers and everything else. So I don't know if those folks have well water or not, but still, it really bothers. It really bothers me knowing that we have to be, conserving, but yet there are others that are out there that aren't.
They're supposed to mirror our restrictions, Joe.
Yeah. No, I know that. And so I hope that somebody in Hopkinton is policing themselves as well.
Well, the good news is that everyone's lawns are dead, so nothing's coming. Like, there's no point in watering your lawns at this point. So
everyone's is dead.
It's like the top of my head.
Rob, we need to send the enforcement crew to Rob's neighborhood. So
just around town with the green lawns.
They actually say it's when you have drought situations like this, they say it's better not to water at this point in time because this encourages the grassroots to go deeper into the soil looking for water rather than keeping them shallow if you're just to, water under these kinds of conditions. So everybody's in my neighborhood, everybody's brown here.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. You get compliant. Very good.
So that's all I had.
Would you need us to vote to take action on extending that?
Yes, the board needs to vote to extend it to September 30th.
Motion to extend our water restrictions to September 30th, 2022.
Can we take this vote without it being on the agenda? Without us getting hands?
Because I asked to add it at the beginning.
Okay.
And we agreed.
Not a problem.
It was an emergency.
That's fine. I just don't want to have a legal ramification get thrown at us.
If we get pushed back, then at our first meeting in September, we would extend it again.
Didn't we give Michael authorization to extend it though?
I thought we did.
Did you do it at the last vote?
I don't think so.
I thought
I could be wrong, but I don't remember doing that.
I know I recommended that we do so.
It was to go to stage. It was to allow me to just go ahead
to vote to stage two because we only voted stage one.
That's what it was. Okay.
But we didn't.
So I'll second Yolanda's motion.
Great. Could I have a roll call vote?
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, aye.
Yeah.
Kinsman, aye. That passes 5-0. Okay. So you'll have Ashley and folks put out the communication to continue the water restrictions, Michael?
That is extended, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Do you have anything else under town manager report?
No, that's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, at 8:36, we're moving to board reports. Yeah, I know. Steve's having a party over there. All right, I'll start off with Yolanda because she's first box.
Okay. A couple things. I attended the YMCA Advocacy Day this year. Not as many people as usual. And of course, Carolyn Dykema is no longer the state rep, so she was not there. But Karen Spilka, our senator, was there. And it was another great day. Always great to see what the YMCA is doing. And they are at full capacity this year, and they have a lot of kids. So that was good. We talked about this, that the regional collaborative had our trail event. It was great. Not only were the members of our community from our region were there, but Sherborne came in and Hopkinton came in and were part of it as well. So that was it was held at the Hopkinton State Park, but in the Ashland portion near the beach, they have this great new covered area. So if you want to do something, you can rent that. This coming Saturday is Sip and Shop with all women-owned businesses at the Corner Spot. I believe it's from 5 to 7, so that should be a fun event. And because it's been moved a couple of times, I am hoping to be attending the ABA/Metro West Chamber event that they're having on next Tuesday, the 30th. It was originally the 9th, and then it got pushed to yesterday, and now it's pushed to the 30th. So hopefully the weather is cooperative. And then school starts. But I'll let Brandy talk about that because she actually is impacted by it. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Yolanda.
Yep.
Steve, you're in the next box.
I'm in the next box. Okay, so just a couple things. So the Lions the Ashland Lions Club will be starting our monthly breakfast a month early this year on September the 1st, next Thursday. And that's 9 a.m. at the community center. It's a great breakfast. You get a ton of food, and all for the cost of $1. And you get some great people that cook the food for you and serve it. So it's a good take for seniors out in the community. And so just want to let folks know the first one will be September the 1st on Thursday. The Dragonfly Festival is coming up September the 10th, Saturday, September the 10th, 1 p.m. Through 6 p.m. At the Corner Spot this year. Because of all the construction, we're holding it only at the Corner Spot. Next year is actually this 9th annual event. Next year is our 10th. Hopefully we can make a big splash next year with the downtown completed, Mill Pond Park reconstituted, and so we'll look forward to having a big bash for our 10-year festival. Jen had mentioned, or Michael had mentioned earlier about Ashland is United holding the Ukraine event to support Ukraine on Saturday at the Corner Spot. Rob and I attended, and it was very nice. There was some Ukrainian costumes, photographs of some of the ladies there with head garb and so on. So it was well done. But it was hot. It was a very, very hot day. It was not as well attended as I think the organizers had hoped, but it was a pretty hot day. And then the only just want to make note also, the Metro West K9 5K event is coming up on September the 18th this year at the Metro West Y in the Outdoor Center in Hopkinton. I've done it in the past. Otis and I are registered this year.
Right.
Brandy, I hope to see you and your pup. And Joe, you've got a new pup. You don't have to run. It's either a walk or a run. Otis and I we're gonna be walking. So but we're looking forward to that.
Quite a sight.
It's a fun event. I mean, I don't have a dog anymore, but I still love going and watching. And I was looking through some pictures, Steve, and I have one of you from probably 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's it get usually pretty good attendance, and all kinds of dogs and owners, sizes and shapes, and it's a lot of fun. The last thing on my list is we talked a little bit about the budget and the legislative process and so on. One of the more disappointing situations that we have right now is the fact that the legislature was unable to vote and approve a economic development bill. It's hung up for whatever reasons. I don't want to get into the newspaper reports and all of this back and forth, but part of this bill included tax rebates to citizens, and I think it's a shame that this hasn't been completed, that they haven't gone back to work. They're now in informal sessions, and who knows when this is going to be resolved, unfortunately, and it is I think a disservice to the citizens of the Commonwealth. So I just wanted to make note of that. So yeah. That's my tune tonight, my editorial comment.
Thanks, Steve. Rob, you're up next.
As Steve said, I attended the Ukrainian event that Ashland United put on. It was thanks to them for putting that on. Yeah, it was a hot day. It's tough time to schedule it, but it was pretty good attendance. I think I wanted to talk about, just to follow up a little bit on what Steve said. Last week I attended virtually the MMA legislative briefing, which was one of the economic development bill was one of the things they touched on. But there's a whole kind of panoply of legislation and funding coming down. I think that's the big picture. The economic development, of course, is a huge thing that's being held up by this law that apparently people forgot about, but hopefully will get ironed out, and we'll get a little tax credit, and then they can move on to see what there is left to distribute. But the thing that struck me about it, and I have like 2 pages of notes I'm not going to bore people with, but one of the things we should kind of follow up with, whether it's with Karen and Jack Lewis, to get some more details. I think the big picture thing is there's really a lot of opportunity for funding, but again, the state and the administration and the legislature both seem to really like these putting things in the form of grant programs that you have to apply for. And that really, because I think the formulaic stuff, if my understanding was right, the chapter 90 stuff is not changing. The base is not going to change, but they're putting out for grant programs a pretty substantial bit of money. So I guess the takeaway from that in the short term is that every municipality needs to have the resources to search for and apply for these grants and then administer them. So that seems to be the unfortunate reality of the current preference that the legislature and administration seem to have, putting everything in grant programs. So I guess I would just throw that out there. We've talked before about trying to get help, and whether it's on a consultant basis or whether staffing positions could be filled, but that seems to be the reality. And there's a lot of different funding, complete streets, all sorts of infrastructure coming down the pipeline. And so anyway, that's the kind of preview of coming attractions, I think. And that's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to say that I represented the Select Board on August 15th, Monday morning, at the Stone Park for Indian Independence Day. They were celebrating their Independence Day. It was nice to see they had about between 75 and 125 people there. It was very, very well attended. Greatly appreciated what Ashland does for them, and was very thankful for the things that they do for us as volunteers and other things for the town. So that's one of the things we did. I get a little disappointed with, our summer concerts went very well. Because of the heat, they weren't well attended, but those die-hard fans, they were out there in the heat. Our last concert was last night, and of course it rained out. The last 3 years, our last concert of the year, always gets rained out. So we're trying to reestablish the band to see if they have an open date in their schedule so we could have them before the bad weather starts to fly. And we'll go from there. But other than that, greatly appreciate all those that did attend, all the bands that worked out. I'd like to give a real shout out to Mike Duca for coordinating all the efforts over there and getting everything done so everybody could have and enjoy the free concerts that we've been doing over the past years. And thank you to the select board for providing us some funding to get us over the hump with that. And a lot of the monies that we generate through the corn sales over this past summer has also been utilized to help pay for some of the bands because, of course, their fees go up too. Yeah, Yolanda, go ahead.
I just want to say I've gone twice now to get that corn. The first time, our friends from Belgium were like, this is so good. It was just like, the corn is very good. So thank you for doing that. And it's reasonably priced. So.
It is. And we want to make sure that everybody enjoys it. So, which is good. And I appreciate everything that you folks do. And again, hopefully we'll be able to do what we do again. And we'll definitely going to resurrect Ashland Day next year. And by the way, we just got to mention that the wacky, wonderful parade that a lot of volunteers are working on, we have slated for October 15th. I'll just remind everybody, get yourselves involved, get your neighborhoods involved. We're trying to get a kazoo band in our neighborhood. So we'd like to do a battle of the neighborhoods to see how that works out. You know, I don't know if we can do rhythm and blues or jazz and a kazoo, but we'll go do our damnedest to have a good time. But that's it, Madam Chair. And school will be coming in session soon. So just keep watching the roads. That's all.
I know Steve had one more thing before I go, so I'll let Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize. I actually had gotten an email from, this is from Julian Doctor, and it's regarding the Kid Spot sign. And it's a short email, I'll just read it. I noticed that the sign I had made for Kid Spot at Stone Park many years ago is in really bad shape. I would like to propose to the Lions that they pay for materials and that a few of us rejuvenate it. Do I have to get any approval from anyone to do that? It would be the same as it is now, not changed in any way other than fixed up. So again, I don't know what the process is. I told them that I would just, bring it to the board for discussion, and sounds like a great way to fix something that needs repair. I haven't gone down to look at it, Joe. This is your domain.
It definitely your thoughts on that? TLC for sure.
Yeah. Is the board okay with just telling Julian to, go for it?
Sure. I
Yes.
don't have a problem with that. I think it'd be great.
Yes.
I'll let him know. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. That's very generous of them to do that. So I don't have much because I've been away, but I did, Yolanda and Joe had mentioned this next Wednesday, the 31st, is the start of school. I know our student athletes are already back. The bus routes have been posted, and I know it's going to be a wild couple days at the beginning of the school year, but I just wanted to wish the teachers and staff and administration and students and parents a really great start of the school year. And I've got a rising sophomore in high school, so time goes very fast. So things are good. So I hope everyone has a good start to the school year. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is I know Saturday there's the volunteer event that Yolanda is hosting at her house, and I was curious, Susan, do we know how many people are going to be there for that?
I did not look at the numbers today. The last time I looked, there was probably about 40.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah.
So I know we didn't take any action on like a budget or anything like that. Can we put that on our agenda for our next meeting for funding for that, or Michael, what do you think is the best?
Well, I believe typically the board allocates some money from the selectmen's gift account. Am I remembering that correctly, Susan?
Yes, and normally what we do is we do a not to exceed number. That way, I couldn't ask for a number because originally we didn't know how much it was going to cost. So not having a number of people yet, it's still hard. So a not to exceed number would be best.
Yeah, but we can do that at the next meeting, right?
Okay. All right. So we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting. So thank you to Yolanda for hosting that on Saturday.
So
And
I have one question / comment. Steve texted me about whether or not we want to offer or allow alcoholic beverages. I don't know. No. Okay.
Mike's shaking his
I'm
head,
getting
by the way.
a no from Michael.
I don't
So
know.
okay.
No.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was, I wasn't planning to.
Oh, sure,
I'm
Steve.
just asking.
I
I'm
really
just
see
asking the
Steve
question.
with the flask.
Yeah.
Pulling it
Okay.
out.
Talking about, I got Snapple iced tea here.
I've got bottled water, but it sure smells
That
like
is
vodka.
disappointing to hear, but anyway.
So will TJ be providing that, or water, or some kind of drink, or?
I only ask them for food. If you want them to provide drinks, let me know and I can call them tomorrow.
I don't know what. do we think?
Otherwise, you can get a couple cases of water. and-
Water. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
good. I don't think it's in anybody's best interest that I'm there on Saturday. So unfortunately, I'm probably going to be still in my house on Saturday. But I did want to, first of all, thank Yolanda for hosting the volunteer event, and thank all the volunteers for all their service. And I know that that you guys will do a great job of hosting without me. So if there that's all I have for tonight. If I could get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call or hand vote.
Greaves, aye.
Aye.
Mignani, aye.
Bye.
Kinsman, aye.
Everyone feel better, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who's the meeting host right now? Can we
Right now,
give it to? Can we give
Susan.
it to WACA-TV, because I need to film something with them before the meeting goes away. Is that possible?
Susan, you would need to do that. I can't do it as co-host.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Hey, Yolanda, can you do me a favor? If
I
you
don't know,
need any,
maybe.
if you need any assistance on Saturday, can you give me a jingle tomorrow?
Sure.
So maybe I can help provide some things for you, make it a little easier for you and Rich.
Probably. Now you're making us look bad, Joe. That's
Damn right I'm making you look bad.
I'm just kidding, but
We
he's got a good point.
We may need to ask people to bring some outdoor chairs. I mean, we have quite a few.
Yep.
But
I'll bring some chairs.
yeah,
Okay.
like some camp chairs or something, we can throw them in the lawn. And
Sure.
I did ask Susan to send something out to people that if they want to bring their bathing suits, the pool will be open. So.
Yeah.
You guys have a great time. It'll be. I think it's gonna be a great weekend. I think it's gonna be gorgeous.
Yeah, so Yolanda, don't hesitate if you think there's something you need help with.
Yeah.
Brandy, we can deliver a hamburger to you if you want.
Oh,
You can make a house call.
Right.
You guys are the best. So
With a 10-foot pole, so that way, we keep our,
I know.
distance.
I know. Nobody wants to be around me. It's okay. All right, then. We have voted to adjourn, and so let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:55 tonight. And
Good night,
everyone. We'll see you.
Feel better, Brandy.
Thanks. We'll see you for our first meeting in September.
Okay.
All right.
Have a great long weekend as well.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.